Today we geek out about Zombie Road. Hey guys, what's going on? This is Lee from Geek City USA here, and today we're going to talk about a game called Zombie Road. Now, Zombie Road is a game put out by Rampage Games, and it's a game coming to Kickstarter here in the near future, and it's a game for 2 to 4 players in which you are racing to make it down Zombie Road, a set number of miles, and hopefully not die in the process. So we're going to take you over here. I'll give you a brief overview on how the game plays, and we'll come back and I'll give you my thoughts on the game. All right, this is Zombie Road. Now, there are 2 ways that you can play Zombie Road. You can play it competitively, where everybody's free for all, everybody's against their opponents, or you can play cooperatively, in which you play together trying to reach a common end goal. And whether you play cooperatively or competitively, the end goal of the game is essentially to travel a specific number of miles depending on game difficulty. Now, when you start, you'll see that there are these character cards here, and every person who plays is going to pick one. And this would be the role that they are, as well as a perk that they have. So for this instance, a cop would have the ability to upgrade a weapon 1 level. A soldier can kill 1 zombie, and so on. And you would deal these out to each player playing, or if you wanted to, you could pick which one you want, I suppose. But every player is going to get one of those. And as you play the game, you're going to encounter different cards in the deck. Now, to go through those cards, these are your mile cards, and this is what moves you down the road. So if you're playing a game where your goal is to, move 100 miles, these are the cards that you're going to play to get down the road. So these different cards will get you where you need to go. However, along the way, you might encounter some sort of disasters. In this case, a broken arm, and if you break your arm, for example here, you can't use a weapon, or in this case, if you run out of fuel, you can't move down the road. So if I ran out of fuel, I couldn't play one of these cards. If I had a broken arm, I couldn't play a weapon to save myself from a zombie. So in that case, you need to find these aid cards. And you see here, like here's a cast, and this allows you to repair a broken arm, and the fuel tank, which would allow you to fix the out of fuel card here. So if you had these in front of you, or if you played one of these on your opponents could in turn play these cards to get rid of these. And finally, there's also items that you're going to run into, these weapons. In this case, a shotgun, which is a level 3 weapon, or a baseball bat, which is a level 1 weapon. And where this comes in handy is for when you run into the zombies. In this case, a level 3 zombie here, so you would need to attack them with a level 3 weapon, or in this case, a level 1 zombie, which just would need a level 1 or better weapon to kill it. And as you kill them, you would be able to move down the road that many miles. Now, if at any point you can't kill a zombie, you are dead and out of the game. Now, depending on the difficulty level, some difficulty levels will let you die multiple times in the game. Other difficulty levels will say you're one and done. So if you die, you are out of the game and there's no chance of you winning. Now, you're also going to run into these masterclass cards. And what these are is these are cards that you play and you keep in front of you, and you can only ever have one, but they have a never-ending power or perk to them. So in this case, if you draw an out of fuel disaster, you can immediately discard it. And this one here, a katana, if you have a weapon, it's not discarded when you kill a zombie. So these, you can only have one in play. So if I have this card in front of me and then I draw this card, this one, the katana, will then replace the gas station. And again, you can only ever have one of these in play. Now, to give you a quick overview on how to play, just move these away. I'll set this up as though this were a competitive game. So you would give each person a character card. In this case, player 1 would be an athlete that has the ability of 1 free sling, and this player has a cop, so upgrade a weapon 1 level. And then you would deal out 3 cards to each player. And at this point, if you deal any zombies, you would discard them, shuffle them back in the deck. So here, in neither case do we have a zombie. So I'll just leave these cards in front of these characters, just so that way you can see what they are. And then let's say that the goal is to move 100 miles down the road. So what's going to happen is at the start of your turn, let's say we're going to play this player, you draw a card. And then you get to play a card, or you get to take one action. And an action can be stopping a zombie, playing a perk, what have you. So in this case, I'm going to look at my cards and I'm going to say, well, this is the best card that I have, so I will play this card to move me 25 miles down the road. And then if you ever have more than 3 cards, you would have to discard a card. So the second player can go ahead and draw, and they get a card and they'll say, okay, I'm going to move 20 miles down the road. Go back to the first player. They could draw a weapon, and maybe they want to replace this card and keep the weapon, and then move, say, 10 miles down the road. And you continue on, you know, drawing cards and flipping, and then at some point as an action, what you can do, well, let's say I drew a zombie. So in this case, say I'm player 1 and I draw this zombie. It's a level 3 zombie. I need to kill it with either a shotgun or a chainsaw. And really what you need to do is, if you look at these weapons, they're level marked. So as long as you total that number or higher, you're good to go. So if you only had a crossbow, this zombie would kill you, you'd be out of the game. However, we have a shotgun, so we could take it and discard it. This card's out of play, and then this zombie goes to our score moving forward. For an action, what you can also do is you could play one of these disaster cards on your opponent. So I could say, okay, for my turn, I'm going to do this. Now, you cannot move until you fix this. Now, of course, they have a fuel tank, so they're good to go, but they wouldn't be able to move without getting rid of this first. Same thing if, you know, you take one of the other cards, you're out of ammo, you're not going to be able to, you'd have to discard a weapon in order to get rid of that card, and so on. And you keep moving on until you hit your end goal of miles. Now, if you're playing a cooperative game here, your cards are all public knowledge to each other. And for your action, let's say player 1 here draws a zombie and they can't defeat the zombie. Well, if player 2 were to have a weapon, let's say player 2 had this weapon, for their action, they could kill that zombie. And then player 2 would draw a card on their turn, but would not be able to take an action because they took theirs a previous turn. So then player 1 would have to take care of this zombie, or this guy would die. And you go on and on until you hit your goal of whether it's 100 miles each player, or you hit a total of 240 miles, as long as every player gets at least 25 miles to win, or whatever your end goal is. Now, there is one last card that I should show you, and that is the dreaded zombie bite. Now, if you draw this card, you are dead. You are out of the game, unless, of course, you have the master card, which were the orange cards, like the katana here, for example. There's one for this, which is immunity, which makes you immune to zombie bites. But so this is a pretty deadly card that's in the deck, and this would be the only real other wild card that's unexpected. Of course, there are other sorts of disasters, there are other weapons, other zombie types, but then there's the zombie bite, and this is something that you definitely want to watch out for. Now, one more item to add too is if you decide to use your perk, like in this case where you have a cap that lets you upgrade a weapon 1 level, let's say you're attacking a zombie and, well, he's kind of a weak zombie, but let's say that you are being chased by this runner. He's a level 1 zombie, but all that you have is a, let's say a level 2 weapon. So I don't know if we have one readily available here, but let's just say we have this weapon here. And this would let you tap this card, and you could use that perk to upgrade this level, this weapon 1 level. So this would become a level 2 weapon. Now, of course, in this case, you wouldn't be able to beat the runner, but you get the idea here. And then once you use a perk, those perks are used unless you get a card that lets you reset your perk. So typically you're only going to get to use those once per game. Now, when you die, because you will die, dying happens quite often, well, not quite often, but dying happens every game or so. Somebody's going to die for sure. Obviously, it's a zombie game. And if you die, depending on your difficulty level, typically you would discard your character card, and you could draw another one at random, and you would discard all your cards and your miles gained, and you would essentially be starting over from scratch. So your opponent would have a great lead on you, or if this is your partner and you're playing cooperative, they would be pretty bummed out because you just set them back. Way to go. But in a nutshell, that is Zombie Road. So we are going to take you back up top, and I will give you my thoughts on this game. All right, guys, that was Zombie Road. So let's start by talking about the components of the game. Now, let me start by saying that this was a prototype copy of the game. However, this game, the prototype copy looked fantastic. This is something that could have been purchased in a store, and I would have been completely happy with that. The cards were high quality, the box looked good, everything was good with regards to the quality of the game. Now, I'll also say the art on the game looked fantastic. So I was a big fan of the mile marker cards specifically. I don't know what it was about them, but maybe it was a bright blue sign with the bullet holes in it. It just looked super cool, and it was I don't know, just something about laying those cards down. They were bright and exciting in a game that was otherwise scary. You know, you're flipping a card and you're drawing a card and you don't want to run into a zombie. So when you see that blue road sign flip over in front of you, I got a good feeling about it when that happened. So definitely like the art and like the component quality. There are two methods of gameplay when it comes to playing Zombie Road. You can play competitively and you can play cooperatively. And I've played both ways and with multiple player counts, all the way from 2 on up to 4. And personally, I would prefer the competitive gameplay just because I like holding on to those disaster cards and being able to play them on friends when they think they're doing well and they might be squeaking out in the lead. A lot of times those disaster cards can immediately flip the flow of the game, because if somebody's winning, and they could be 5 miles away from winning, if you play one of those disasters and they draw a zombie, that next turn they could be dead and they're out of the game. You know, all their progress is out of the game. They could draw another card, but that, you know, the excitement of being near victory and now having to start all over again is a pretty cool feeling in the game. Now, when it comes to the cooperative mode of the game, I enjoyed that as well, and it was a little more strategic in that as you flip the cards and you're running into disasters, you're holding cards and you're thinking, should I help my friend out or do I hold on to this for me? Sometimes you might want to make sure that you live more so than your partner, but it was a great feeling overall with, you know, the way the cooperative game flowed. So both the competitive and the cooperative gameplay flowed very well. Now, the audience of this game, I think, is very broad. This is a game that you could play with experienced gamers as a filler in between games on a gamer night, or when you're just looking to get something in real quick. And it's also a game that you can introduce to people that aren't into heavier games or that aren't into games at all. This is a game that it's mirrored off of a game called Mille Bornes, which is another game in which you're trying to race through France. But it adds extra elements of zombies and different roles, and I think it makes the game a lot more interesting and a lot more accessible to people that aren't necessarily into games. I think the whole zombie theme, it's a theme that's interesting to people, not just to gamers. It's interesting to people in a broad sense. So I definitely think it's a game that you could introduce to pretty much anybody. The replayability of this game, I think, is quite high. With it being a game that's accessible to all sorts of people, that definitely makes it more replayable. And this is also a game that for us that we would leave sitting out because it's a small box game. And when we were in between plays, or if we were sitting around, say, eating dinner, eating lunch, or just hanging out, it would be sitting there, we could deal out a quick game and run through it. So it definitely has a high replayability factor. So all in all, if you're a fan of the zombie theme and you enjoy card games like this, I definitely would recommend you checking this game out. It's easy to teach, it's quick to learn, and it's fun to play. The art looks good, and we've enjoyed it in the time that we've had it. All right, guys, that's it. I'm Lee from Geek City, USA. Thanks for hanging out with us. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. And if you have anything to say, comment in the comments down below. I'd love to interact with you guys. Also, check us out on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. I'd love to interact with you guys there as well. So once again, thanks for hanging out with us, and we'll see you next time.